the media has seemed to turn on Israel and Ukraine, at least a little bit. But I call this an 11th hour sort of trying to run and fix things, because if they had genuinely understood what this is all about, right? That this isn't about Hamas, that this is about what Israel wants to attain, and also what the United States is allowing Israel to do or provoking Israel to do for their own gain. So you have different things here. You have the Israeli Zionist belief that they are entitled to all of these lands that we mentioned with Dave, Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, even into Jordan. They basically control so much of these countries' borders, including the Rafah crossing. Egypt pretty much has very little say in that, and Jordan as well. And so they want to go into all of these territories. And simultaneously, they believe that this is because they are, given this right by God. And then you have the United States that's like, oh, yeah, totally. You're totally given this right by God. So they can go and capture these territories to do, of course, the every single military every single military action, every single military directive that the United States provides. So in a way, this is a win for the US, but I still believe they are actually more so under control. And then you have, of course, the mainstream media that initially was, we stand by Israel, we support by Israel. But as Dave mentioned earlier, this shift has happened. There has been a lot of pushback, not just from certain members of the both Republican and Democratic Party, but also from media. We've seen the BBC and even CNN go after Israel in terms of being a little bit more fair than they were before. I don't think this is genuine at all. Obviously, there is direction for them to be able to do this. This is how they function. But it is a significant tell in the loss of the propaganda war, but perhaps also an attempt to not go down in history as terrible, as standing on the side of this really ethnic cleansing and genocide, because they don't want to go down in history. That is how bad things are in Gaza. That is how bad things are going. So let's watch this clip. I believe this is Chris Hayes, and how he is actually now criticizing Israel. And of course, they still call it the Israel-Hamas war, but let's see what he says, because this is on MSNBC.
Gotcha.
But that aside, the deeper problem here is that if you spend any time at all reading the Israeli press, listening to what Israeli leaders and commentators are actually saying, it is very clear that for a lot of people in government, the mass destruction of Gaza, raising it like Putin raised Grozny, or Assad raised Aleppo, is the point, the goal. Many prominent members of the Israeli governing class don't think there is such a thing as an innocent civilian in Gaza, have said that everyone in Gaza deserves their fate. From Knesset member Meirav Ben-Ari saying that, quote, the children of Gaza have brought this upon themselves, to an Israeli military spokesman saying the emphasis of Israel's military campaign was, quote, on damage and not on accuracy, to Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, suggesting there are no civilians in Gaza and everyone is a legitimate target, to journalist Shimon Riklin, who said this on Israeli TV.
חס וחלילה, פשעי מלחמה זה אני, אתה רגל על הגב. פשעי מלחמה זה אני מודה, אני אגיד את זה פה, לא אכפת לי שירדו עליי, אוספים פה חומרים. אני לא נרדם טוב בלי שאני רואה בתים קורסים בעזה. מה אני אעשה? עוד בתים, עוד מגדלים, שלא יהיה להם לאן לחזור.
That's not a fringe view in Israel. I mean, even the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, invoked the lessons from the biblical story of Amalek and addressed the nation in Hebrew in the end of October. And in that biblical chapter, God commands King Saul on how to respond to an attack by the rival kingdom of Amalek. Quote, now go attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put them to death, men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. Now, I will be the first to confess, I have no idea what to do about Hamas or about what comes next. But the Amalek method cannot be the solution. To be honest, I'm not particularly convinced the Israeli leadership has any idea what comes next. Many want full destruction. And Hamas also wants this war. They have been clear on that. I think they want it to continue. They seem to think all of this death and destruction benefits in the end because of the rage it will produce towards Israel. But whatever your views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it is just plainly the case that our country is supporting a war whose animating moral logic looks to most of the world, and frankly to me, to be that every single last person in Gaza is guilty and deserves their lot. And that is the moral logic of Hamas. It is the moral logic that drove the atrocity of October 7th. And an atrocity like October 7th cannot justify whatever comes after it, whatever the response. There is no terrorist attack, no matter how horrific, and truly October 7th was horrific, that can wash clean what we are seeing in Gaza and what we as Americans and our government are abetting. It must end. We must stop it.
Okay, so fam, obviously he has to denounce Hamas. He has to still say what happened on October 7th was so horrific and blah, blah, blah. Right, but this is a shift from what we were seeing before, where they were just standing by Israel no matter what. Now, at 20,000 and frankly, probably way more than 20,000 people later, they can't justify this because the entire world is seeing that this is an ethnic cleansing, that this is a genocide, that this is completely unjustifiable. What American tax dollars are going to, what we as American people are, in a way, allowing our government to do. In a way, we are helpless to stop it. There's really little ways that we can do besides what Dave mentioned. And, I still don't think that that's it. I think there's more that can be done. I think it's going to have to come outside of electoral politics, in my opinion, to enact any change. But America isn't there yet. The United States of America isn't there yet. So what do you think led to this sort of shift? Do you think this is a genuine shift, or do you think this is more of like, okay, we're going to get burned if we don't say something to denounce what Israel is doing? Because that's 20,000 dead Palestinians. And they're being blatantly honest, Israel is, about wanting to literally kill all of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I said earlier, right? When I was bragging about you and the work that you and Eva do and all the public pressure that you guys have provided, but it has been a team effort, and it's a different world nowadays, right? Everybody has a camera, even the poorest people have a camera. And when the public gets to see, and this is something when I had Norman Finkelstein, when I was doing Jimmy's show, said, he goes, we just have to educate people. Once they understand what's going on, once they see what's going on, right, they'll be fine. I've talked about on this show before the way I got so aggravated last week because people are still doing their own thing. Like, they're not talking about this right now. They're talking about their assessments and the beach and everything else. They can live, out of sight, out of mind, but they haven't been able to do that now with this going on because there's been so much public pressure going on. Even that Palestinian TikToker who goes and gets on with Israeli citizens or young people, and Israeli kids are saying, we don't care, we want to kill you, we don't care, we want to bomb you. So it's been a effort by everybody, yourself and all these other people, and anybody who's done shows, and anybody who's had Norman Finkelstein on, and anybody who showed what's going on, and all these reporters that are getting killed. It's been a team effort where you believe your own eyes, and when you see it, you're like, whoa. That's why Chris Hayes is like, now, because of the public pressure, going, man, it's bad for my brand if I continue to sit here and go, right, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? He still throws that caveat out there. But I think it's important right now, and I have this video I just kind of added in from Instagram, Jamie, I want to put up next, about what David Icke has said, this whole situation, because, a lot of people are saying, wait a second, even the religious people, like, this is a holy war, that these guys are going to things in the Bible or the Torah to justify their killing. What I think needs to be spoke about after we watch this little video. Let's get this video up on Instagram from David Icke. You got it, brother? Jamie? Do you have it or no? And he needs a second. All right. While he's grappling up, but I think what we need to talk about, because here's the thing they're starting to shift to a little bit more. Okay, what Hamas did, they did because they knew that Israel was going to be so brutal that the world would see it, and they would have a lot of public pressure on Israel for doing so. So the narrative is to try to make Hamas look not just inhumane for what they did on October 7th, when they, that is even kind of all the evidence is folded on Israel right now, as we see, like, well, it was the IDF killing a lot of their own people. And it really wasn't just, it was mostly military when you look at the numbers that in the names that they put out, that Israel puts out, and showing it was mostly, military people and stuff. And there was a lot of people who used to say, oh, man, you're just blowing it off what they did on October 7th. You're not understanding what's going on. I've always said that it will be blown out of proportion, that, once again, I don't condemn killing of anybody, let alone civilians, but it will be blown out of proportion so they can manufacture consent to go and be brutal and kill a bunch of civilians in Gaza. That's what they're going to do, and that's what they did do. Not saying what they did was right, but they're going to blow it out of proportion. But the thing we need to talk about is, I think that people don't understand it. It's like Hamas didn't just sacrifice their people to make Israel look bad. Hamas and the Palestinian resistance as a whole, they had nothing to lose at this point. Their back was so against the wall. Conditions were so brutal. You could talk about October 7th, but on October 6th, there was still a blockade. They were still on a calorie count. There was no fresh water going in there. They were still being displaced from their homes. They were still being killed in the West Bank. That's on October 6th. And people need to understand that. And that's where this conversation is going to shift next, because too many people are concentrating now, shifting to, okay, it's awful what Israel's doing, but Hamas did what they did. Now, not only what they did, they killed civilians and whatnot. They did this knowing that that was their number one tactic, that if they sacrificed their own people, the world would turn against Israel because they would be brutal. I don't think that's what happened, fam. I think people have to understand what happened on October 7th is because what was going on October 6th. All those conditions we talked about. They had nothing to lose at this point. Nothing to lose. Their lives were so awful that they had to fight back, and it's not just about sacrificing their people to get involved. It was the conditions that led up to why they did this. Am I right or am I wrong when I say that?
No, I mean, again, coming into this quote unquote conflict, as it started on October 7th, is the same as coming into the Russia-Ukraine conflict as it started on February of 2022. I mean, it's just not, it's not real. It's false. You literally, Palestinians were being attacked. The Jabalia refugee camp was being attacked. They were attacking the mosques, and people were getting killed, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank where there is no Hamas. So this all started a long time ago. It's like coming into it, at the finale of a game and saying, oh yeah, look at what Hamas did, or it's completely hypocritical, and it's omitting the facts of this entire thing. And you're right. I mean, when you live in occupation in a state where Israel controls your water, your food, your electricity, your movement, you're not free. And I think any person that values freedom, these ideals that the United States says they value, would understand that if you don't have that, you are going to risk your life to try to get it, especially if you see Israel killing and detaining and imprisoning everybody you know and love. And again, Hamas, what they did was very little compared to what many of us would do if somebody even came into our home and tried to steal our things or attack one of our family members. Let's be honest here. The American public, especially the Second Amendment folks, I'm one of them. I support the Second Amendment. But if somebody tries to come at you and your family, you have a right to self-defense. Why don't Palestinians have the right to self-defense? It's always Israel has the right to defend itself. It's never Palestinians have the right to defend themselves, because we have been warped and programmed in this way to really dehumanize these people for their religious beliefs and somehow uphold Israel for their own religious beliefs and their own call to ethnicity. And so that has been largely the mantle for which Israel has gotten away with this brutal slaughtering of
Yeah.
Palestinians using the mantle of Judaism, which it really doesn't have and it doesn't own.
Fam, I know there's been some differences with the libertarians, you know, as far as what Hamas is doing and like the micros of what's going on. But the majority, I think the sense is that they don't think that what Israel's doing is right, and they're against it because of property rights. Property rights. 1948, go back to property rights. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I like that. But in that video you played with Chris Matthews, he talked about and he showed Netanyahu going to the religious aspect of what's going on. Look at this David Icke video and what he says about Israel. This is mind-blowing. I love this. If you can make that screen big on the video itself, Jamie, you can't? Okay. All right. Play what you can then, and we'll go from there.
Zionism, the idea of building a state of Jewish farmers on Arab land in the Middle East, is a stupid idea to begin with. I've always thought so. I've always thought it's a silly, messianic, superstitious nationalist idea, and it's a waste of Judaism. And it guaranteed a quarrel with the Arabs because it meant we're going to take away from you what's most precious, your land, by trying to make Jews into peasants. Already a silly idea. That's not the way to rescue Central European Jewry, make them into farmers in Palestine. Guaranteed an injustice to the Arabs, which now anyone can see, and is now entering its third, fourth generation. Fourth generation of Palestinians brought up either in exile or dispossession or under occupation and humiliation. And now we know something has to be done to address what is part of the original, let's not call it original sin, original misconception of the thing. So I've been writing in favor of Palestinian homeland all my life, and now I'm no more, no less in favor of it than I was because of recent event. But it should be a matter of principle. If Jews born in Brooklyn have a right to a state in Palestine, then Palestinians born in Jerusalem have a right to a state in Palestine. Anyone who doesn't agree with that principle, I think, is suspect.
I think most people do.
They do, but but why in that case do we have the one and not the other? After all, it's America that pays for all this and arms the Israelis and is very much involved in it. If it's a matter of principle, then we should have witnessed.
Fam, what'd you think?
I mean, yeah, I mean, again, why do Jews I don't even like saying the word Jews, but why do Israelis, let's be specific, or people who consider themselves Israeli citizens, right? And they live in the United States and they live in Manhattan, have a right to land in Palestine or in Palestinian territory, because it's not even in Israeli territory. They are literally taking lands that they said they wouldn't expand onto, which is what caused and escalated all of this. And they're attacking all of these people and killing them. And they're saying that God told them that this was right. If it was reversed, if we had Muslims doing that, wouldn't the entire world be like, oh my God?
Yeah. We lost Fiorella. Oh, there she is. Your volume's not on. Yeah. The bird pulled the plug on you again, fam. That damn bird. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
I put up a comment by Jerry Alatello. What's up, Jerry? And he even said, tell your Israel-centric Schofield Bible brainwashed Zionist Christian family and friends that Jesus Christ would be advocating for peace and absolutely not genocide. Thank you so much, Jerry. And thank you to all those other old school people who are out there doing their thing and watching the Convo Couch. We know we've been on sporadically because we got other stuff going on, but it's always fun to do these shows around Christmas time when a lot of people are out there getting ready to go shopping, get their nails done or whatever, fam. We're out here holding it down. Let's get to the second part of this section too as well, because we are having a pretty long show and there's a lot of stuff going on today and a lot of things to do for the holidays. And happy holidays out there to everybody, whether you just celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa is my favorite. Have a great time. Be with your loved ones, be with your family, and enjoy the time. What else we got going on, fam, when it comes to Slava Ukrainia? Again.
Phone call. So I'm like, okay. So I have been kind of talking about how Zelensky is no more the favorite child of the United States, right? Like we all see this happening. We see that they're basically being ignored in favor of Israel, because the United States is just so focused on Israel and Israel and Israel. Well, Zelensky has been very sad lately because the Washington Post even decided to take out the Ukrainian section from their website. So there was a tab that was dedicated to the war in Ukraine, and it was removed from the main page of the Washington Post website. And you can see it here, and you can further see it in the next tweet. What the this was by Olga Bazova. The Washington Post has removed the war in Ukraine section from their website. You can see the war in Ukraine before, and the Washington Post after recently doesn't have this tab anymore. So I think what we're seeing also in the discussions of mainstream media, and this is the Washington Post, right? Democracy dies in darkness. Well, I just don't think that the Ukraine war is going anywhere. So they're basically trying to skirt away, right? And Tara Reid, when the USA low-key breaks up with someone, I mean, really, I mean, they're breaking up with Ukraine via text, which is the worst way to do it, fam. They're not even like saying, hey, let's have a conversation face to face. They're doing it low key. Like, we're just going to remove this tab. We're just going to stop talking about Ukraine as much. We're just going to like shun Zelensky more. And so what we're seeing here is the conflict over? Well, it's not over technically, because the US is still funneling, a few billions here and there. But in terms of the attention paid to it, in terms of everybody knowing the big elephant in the room, it's over. And the Ukrainian army is in a position where it really has very little to go on so far, that they're literally going to recruit women to be in the army because they don't even have enough soldiers. And I'm not saying, I'm against women fighting, but literally they've lost so many people. Okay. Like,
I'm against women fighting as a whole for a country in a proxy war. I'm against it.
Well, I'm against the proxy war in general.
Yeah, I'm against it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's terrible.
If you want though, fam, all this shit's going on. Zelensky bought a multi-million-dollar house in Vero Beach. Maybe we can go down and see it. Because while all that other shit's going on and he's crying for money with his little tin cup, he's buying a $1 million house here in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Florida. And what I mean by that is like, I'm against any draft too. Like, they're basically forcing these people. They're forcing them. They're capturing them in the streets. They've been doing this for a long time, and they're drafting them forcibly. They don't have a choice at this point. Like, there was a lot of conditions in Russia. Like, if you were studying, if you were doing something specific, you didn't have to like go in. And well, Ukraine is literally grabbing people off the streets, and now it's women are being forced to do it. And I think it is just a very tragic and sad situation. And they're not admitting defeat. The United States isn't going to vocally admit, right? Okay, it's done. But they're just going to slide back slowly, like the cowardly way, and do this. And that's what we're seeing with Ukraine, because where are the Ukraine flags? They've been replaced by Israeli flags. They've been replaced by the focus on Israel and supporting Israel, but that's not going so well either. So where is the US turning to next? I think we're going to see them turn to China and Latin America and Iran. So we have Iran, we have China, and we have potentials in Latin America. And these are the areas where we can see, especially with Iran and China, great escalation.
Yeah. Do you have a tweet that we have over here that we can put up here? We're going to talk about real quick. Go ahead, Cheese Slice. By the way, Cheese Slice on the 1s and 2s, everybody. Give that man some love. He's my boy.
I think that's the section, right?
That was the end of the section. Didn't you have a couple? Yeah. I thought I saw a couple other Ukraine. No, we already put them up. Okay, so all right. My bad. So that's that. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on what's going on over there in Ukraine, but it's definitely like, it's far from, I don't want to mention about how the Italians deal with Mussolini, but I hope the Ukrainians maybe learn from that and they can deal with Zelensky that way. That straightens up a lot of people out to make them think before they start just joining, and once again, the U.S. is the one to blame for this. It's been a proxy war there for God knows how long. 2014, they changed the government. Ukraine ceased to exist as a country since 2014. And anybody tried to do the double talk, they should be held accountable. All the independent media journalist people, like that idiot Destiny and all those other dudes and who went along and tried to pretty much parrot these CIA talking points, should be held accountable. And when I say should be held accountable is that you should not follow these guys anymore and stop talking about. We were talking about the situation when we started this show 2 months into it, what was going on in Ukraine as far as the United States getting involved, who they're putting in power, what they're doing on the border of the Russians, and all the Democrats, even these Democrats now who are calling for a ceasefire right now in Israel, they still need to be held accountable. Even Barbara Lee, who was one of the first to call for a ceasefire, needs to be held accountable for what's going on in Ukraine. What happened in Ukraine is disgusting. Since 2014 till this war started, we had, 14,000 civilians almost killed in the Donbass, being bombed by the Azov battalion, women and children hiding in their basements. And now you have, in some counts, almost 500,000 Ukrainians dead. The average age of the soldier is 42 years old. It's disgusting what went on. And the American people who pushed this proxy war, our lawmakers, should be held accountable too as well. If there was any justice, they would be held accountable. But we know they won't because they're never held accountable. And that's what's going on. But still, that means we can't stop. We can't let off the public pressure. All the Convo Couch watchers now, you couch potatoes, keep pushing. You know, I know you hate that, fam. Keep pushing. Keep highlighting it. Do not forget what's going on. Do not forget about the sins that were committed in Ukraine. There were women and children who got slaughtered over there too as well. We can't forget them.